Hello, 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 hello. Hi, hi, hi. Hi, hi, hi. Hope you're well. Hope you're swell. Hope you're wavy, hope you're hope you're gravy. I'm laughing. Someone called me a far right content creator. You know who you are if you're watching. I just thought it was funny. Like, I'm a far right ASM artist. That is a new title. Anyway, I make music. I'm doing a song a day challenge with a goal to drop a song a day until the end of the year. 7 songs every Friday. 7 songs. So link in the description if you want to check that out. Link in the description if you want to check that out. Alright. Anyway. Today's Bible study day. Every Saturday we do Bible study just to go through the story of the Bible. We're going through the first of Samuel, which is like basically the story of David. It's been very interesting thus far. In the last chapter, chapter 23, David was in a cave with the homies because he's been exiled. Because King Saul is trying to kill him. So he's been exiled, and people came to him in this cave because they needed direction. They're like, Saul's dumb and he doesn't know what he's doing. And there are these Kelites, I think they're called Kelites or something like that. And they're giving Israel trouble. And King Saul isn't going to handle that for us. So we need you to handle it for us, David. We know you're in exile. We know you're living in a cave. But can you help us? So David led these people in battle. Like 400 of them. It wasn't a lot. And he actually saved that city. But the city... he inquired of the Lord through spiritual means, obviously, and the Lord told him that Saul is after you, and these people that you just saved, they're going to sell you out and give you to Saul. So you need to dip. You need to get out of here. So he fled. I think that's how the chapter ended, if I'm not mistaken. He fled that place. Oh. No, he fled, and then Saul caught up with him, and Saul was chasing him around this mountain. And just as he was about to like turn this corner or whatever, like, because David was on one side of the mountain, Saul was on the other side of the mountain. Just as he was about to catch up with David, he got informed that his Judah was getting attacked. His city was being attacked by some enemy. I forgot who the enemy was. So he had to leave. He didn't even know that David was right there. He didn't know. He had to leave. He was this close. So David barely escaped. Praise be to God, of course. So now in chapter 24. Now it happened when Saul had returned from following the Philistines, yet the Philistines were the enemy, that it was told him, saying, Take note, David is in the wilderness of En-Gedi. Gedi. Then Saul took 3,000 chosen men from all Israel and went to seek David and his men on the rocks of the wild goats. So the note says in the previous chapter, God miraculously delivered David by drawing Saul away to fight the Philistines at the moment Saul was ready to capture David. Was it miraculous, or did the king leave his kingdom unattended? And the enemies just saw that, were like, let's go take advantage. Like, was that a miracle, or was it just common sense? I don't know. But when Saul was done with the Philistines, he went back to pursuing David. We often wish that our next victory would be a permanent victory. We wish that the spiritual enemies who pursue us like Saul pursued David would simply give up, and we wouldn't have to bear with them anymore. But even when we have victory and they are sent away, they come back and will keep coming back until we go to glory with the Lord. That is the only permanent victory we'll find. Trust in God, people. Fight your battles with God. Don't fight them alone. So with pertaining to, with regards to the wilderness of En-Gedi, the En-Gedi Canyon runs to westward from the Dead Sea. One can still see the good-sized creek flowing down the canyon, making En-Gedi, with its waterfalls and vegetation, seem more like a tropical paradise than the middle of the desert. One can also see the numerous caves dotting the hills. This was a great place for David and his men to hide out. In the middle of barren desert, scouts could easily detect approaching troops. There was plenty of water and wildlife in many caves and defensive positions. So we continue the chapter now. So he came to the sheepfolds by the road where there was a cave, and Saul went in to attend to his needs. In brackets it says David and his men were staying in the recesses of the cave. Oh, so David was lurking in the cave. Saul went into this cave and David was there. Okay. So I was just refreshing on some details. Okay, so the notes say, with regards to the sheepfolds, this indicates that this was a large cave big enough to shelter a flock of sheep. All or most of David's 600 men could hide in the recesses of the cave. 600 men in a cave, just waiting for trouble. So we continue the notes. Since the Bible is a real book, dealing with real people living real lives, we aren't surprised to see it describe Saul's attention to his personal needs. So it's referring to when it says Saul went in to attend to his needs, which means he went to relieve himself. But something as basic and common as this was timed and arranged by God, without Saul having any knowledge of God's timing or arrangement of things. The fact that Saul went in to attend to his needs also meant that he went into the cave alone. His soldiers and bodyguards were outside of the cave waiting for him. So this guy was taking a piss, or he was taking a shit, one of the two. Maybe both. It's usually both, right? So with regards to David being in the cave with these men, it says, what are the chances? Saul had to attend to his personal needs at the exact moment he passed by the same cave where David was hiding. This was no coincidence, but was arranged by God to test David, to train David, and display David's godly heart. Maybe, maybe not. You know the thing about this commentary? It is someone writing this commentary. It's like a person who writes this. So they insert their own subjective views. Is it a miracle? Is it a coincidence? Obviously, it does seem quite clandestine. What does clandestine mean? I want to make sure that I'm not using the wrong word. No, yeah, that was the wrong word.
Clandestine.
Clandestine, and I pronounced it wrong as well. What's the word I was looking for? There's a word. I'm not gonna be able to relax until I figure out what that word is. A word for something that's too good to be true. Like it's so perfectly aligned, like with your will and intentions and whatnot. Word for opportune. And you got auspicious, convenient, felicitous, fortuitous. I like fortuitous. We'll go fortuitous. It does seem a bit too fortuitous to be a coincidence. What was the point of that? Me doing all that? Why did I waste that time? I don't know. I'm a nerd. Anyway, let's continue the chapter. Then the men of David said to him, "This is the day of which the Lord has said to you, Behold, I will deliver your enemy into your hand, that you may do to him as it seems good to you." And David arose and secretly cut off a corner of Saul's robe. Now it happened afterward that David's heart troubled him because he had cut Saul's robe. And he said to his men, The Lord forbid that I should do this thing to my master, the Lord's anointed, to stretch out my hand against him, seeing he is the anointed of the Lord. So David restrained his servants with these words, and did not allow them to rise against Saul. And Saul got up from the cave and went on his way. So Saul did not know, he just avoided death. Like, David just cut off a corner of his robe, and even that was a bit much for him. He's like, oh no, I cut off his robe. Which, I mean, I guess his point is that this is the person God anointed as king. I don't want to be the one that kills him. That seems a bit crazy for me. I don't want to... I ordered food, and I don't know when it's going to be on its way. Am I going to get a notification? Like, what's up? Anyway, so the notes say David's men were excited at the opportunity and believed it was a gift from God. They knew it was no coincidence that Saul came alone into that cave at that moment. They thought this was an opportunity from God to kill Saul. Apparently, on some previous occasion, God promised David, "Behold, I will deliver your enemy into your hand, that you may do to him as it seems good to you." They believed that this was the fulfillment of the promise, that David needed to seize the promise by faith and by the sword. We can imagine David listening to this counsel from his men with his sword, creeping quickly towards Saul, covered by the darkness of the cave. David's men are excited. Their lives as fugitives are about to end, and they will soon be installed as friends and associates of the new king of Israel. But as David came close to Saul and put out his sword, he didn't bring it crashing down on Saul's neck or thrust it through his back. Instead, he secretly cut off a corner of Saul's robe. Some wonder how David could have done this without being detected. Saul may have laid his robe down in one part of the cave and attended to his needs in another part, so David did not have to get right next to Saul to cut off a corner of his robe. Or it may also be that there was enough noise and commotion from the many men outside the cave, along with the horses, that David was simply undetectable. I'm too used to playing stealth video games where you sneak up behind characters and pickpocket them or kill them without them noticing you in time. I think you can pull it off. I think you can be sneaky enough to... Yeah, but cutting off a corner of his robe, how do you do that without being detected? If you had like some very like efficient scissors, maybe, but with like a knife, he's gonna notice that. Because you have to cut off the... So these are good questions. David, but it's saying that there might have been noise, or Saul might have laid his robe down and then gone to relieve himself. So it's either there was a lot of noise or his robe wasn't on him. David decided to spare Saul because he knew that God's promise said, "You will inherit the throne of Israel." He knew that Saul was in the way of that promise, but he also knew it was disobedient for him to kill Saul because God put Saul in a position of authority, and it was God's job to take care of Saul, not David's. David wanted the promise to be fulfilled, but he refused to try and fulfill God's promise through his own disobedience. Where's my food? Sometimes when we have a promise... By the way, I ordered like this panko breadcrumb chicken. It's a burger. I'm looking forward to it. And that sweet potato fries. It's a grill house, so they're supposed to throw in onion rings. Maybe like that's what I got from the other grill house I ordered from last time. Complimentary onion rings. Like it's just nice. It's just nice to do that. I hope they do that. We'll see. I'll let you know if they did that or not. Anyway, sometimes when we have a promise from God, we think we are justified in sinning to pursue that promise. This is always wrong. God will fulfill his promises, but he will do it his way and do it righteously. Instead, we need to be like Abraham, who obeyed God even when it seemed to be at the expense of God's promise, willing to sacrifice the son of promise. So remember when Abraham was willing to sacrifice his son? Because God was like, hey, come on. He was testing him and said, let me see if you're willing to sacrifice your son. Then when Abraham was about to do it, God was like, no. I was just testing. I'm kidding. I was testing you. Okay. Even more, we need to be like Jesus, who didn't take Satan's offer to win back the world at the expense of obedience. When Jesus was tested in the desert for 40 days, 40 nights, and Satan was like, I'll give you this, I'll give you that. And Jesus, get the fuck. No. He said, skedaddle, get out of here, move. In all this, we see that David knew not only how to wait on the Lord, but he also knew how to wait for the Lord. We wait on the Lord by prayer and supplication, looking for the indication of his will. We wait for the Lord by patience and submission, looking for the interposition of his hand. David was determined that when he sat on the throne of Israel, it wouldn't be because he got Saul out of the way, but because God got Saul out of the way. He wanted God's fingerprints on that work, not his own, and he wanted the clean conscience that comes from knowing it was God's work. We also see that David's heart didn't store bitterness and anger towards Saul. My driver's name is Ba. His name is Ba, and he's on his way. Let me read this last passage, and then I'll pause the video so I can send him the gate code. Even though Saul made David's life completely miserable, oh my God, David kept taking it to the Lord, and he received the cleansing from the hurt and the bitterness and the anger that the Lord can give. If David had stored up bitterness and anger towards Saul, he probably wouldn't have been able to resist the temptation to kill him at what seemed to be a risk-free opportunity. Yeah, because Saul has given David a hell. He tried to kill him like 3 or 4 times. Tried to kill his best friend Jonathan, who was also Saul's son, which is crazy. And David was forced to flee his wife, flee his home, flee everything, flee his position as general, flee all the people that loved him, to go hide in a cave because Saul was trying to kill him. It was, yeah, no. It's very easy to hate someone like that. Because look at what he took from him. These notes are very long. Anyway, let me get the food, and I'll be back. So I sent him the code, so when he knocks, I'll go get the food. So with regards to David's heart troubling him, it says this showed a remarkably tender conscience in David. Many people would only be troubled that they had not taken the opportunity to kill Saul. David only cut off the corner of Saul's robe, yet his heart troubled him. Why? Because the robe was a symbol of Saul's royal authority, and David felt bad, rightly so, according to the heart of God, that he had done anything against Saul's God-appointed authority. David expressed this when he said, "The Lord forbid that I should do this thing to my master, the Lord's anointed, seeing he is the anointed of the Lord." David knew better than anyone that Saul was a troubled and corrupt leader, yet it was in God's power to take him away, and David wouldn't do what was only the Lord's to do. Okay. With regards to him restraining his servants, it says, David not only kept himself from taking vengeance upon Saul, he also restrained his servants. Many men in the same situation would say, well, I won't kill Saul now, but if one of my servants does, what can I do? And therefore leave the door wide open for Saul to be killed. But David wouldn't do that, and he restrained his servants. These were the words of a humble, tender conscience before God. They were the words of a man who was convicted at merely cutting off a corner of Saul's robe. When David's servants saw his godliness and how he wanted to please God in everything, their hearts were restrained from doing any evil against Saul. We continue the chapter. David also arose afterward, went out of the cave, and called out to Saul, saying, "My lord the king." And when Saul looked behind him, David stooped with his face to the earth and bowed down. So we'll go back to the notes. David took a big chance here because he could simply have remained in hiding, secure in the fact that Saul had not found him. But he surrendered himself to Saul because he saw the opportunity to show Saul his heart towards him and be reconciled. With regards to him stooping and bowing, this was a great demonstration of submission to Saul. We might think that David had the right to come to Saul as an equal. Well, Saul, we've both been anointed to be king. You've got the throne right now, but I'll have it someday, and you know it. So from one anointed man to another, look at how I just spared your life. That wasn't David's attitude at all. Instead, he said, Saul, you are the boss, and I know it. I respect your place as my leader and as my king. When David stooped with his face to the earth and bowed down, he also showed great trust in God because he made himself completely vulnerable to Saul. Saul could have killed him very easily at that moment, but David trusted that if he did what was right before God, then God would protect him and fulfill the promise. That's beautiful. David was a really humble man. Very, very, very humble. Let's be humble, guys. Let's continue the chapter. And David said to Saul, "Why do you listen to the words of men who say, 'Indeed, David seeks your harm'? Look, This day your eyes have seen that the Lord delivered you today into my hand in the cave. And someone urged me to kill you, but my eyes spared you, and I said, I will not stretch out my hand against my Lord, for he is the Lord's anointed. Moreover, my father, see, yes, see the corner of your robe in my hand. For in that I cut off the corner of your robe and did not kill you. Know and see that there is neither evil nor rebellion in my hand, and I have not sinned against you. Yet you hunt my life to take it. Let the Lord be judge between you and me, and let the Lord avenge me on you. But my hand shall not be against you. As the proverb of the ancients says, wickedness proceeds from the wicked, but my hand shall not be against you. After whom has the king of Israel come out? Whom do you pursue? A dead dog? A flea? Therefore, let the Lord be judge, and judge between you and me, and see and plead my case, and deliver me out of your hand. Oh. Do you hear that? That might be my food. No, that's someone leaving. I just got a notification saying my food is on the way, so it's almost time to dip. Hold on. So, on the notes, David showed great kindness and tact to Saul. David knew very well that Saul's fear of David came from Saul himself and not from anyone else. But David put the blame on nameless others so that it was easier for Saul to say they were wrong instead of I was wrong. Because Saul is just a weird, egotistical psycho. But anyway, even in confrontation, David covers Saul's sin. The quote saying, he prudently and modestly translate the fault from Saul to his followers and evil counselors. And then it also says, some might have said, David, lay it on the line, tell it like it is. And David will to some extent, but even as he does, he will show mercy and kindness to Saul. David will fulfill Proverbs chapter 10, verse 12, love covers all sins. And 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 8, love will cover a multitude of sins. So with regards to David not willing to stretch out his hand because Saul is Lord's anointed, it says this principle of not striking out against God's anointed leaders is good and important, but sometimes has been misused. The phrase touch not the Lord's anointed is in vogue among some Christians and among many leaders. Often to them it means you should never speak against a pastor or a leader. He's above your criticism or rebuke, so just keep quiet. Sometimes it is used even... Sorry, I thought I heard a knock. Sometimes it is used to even prevent a biblical evaluation of teaching, but when David recognized that Saul was the Lord's anointed and refused to harm him, what David would not do is kill Saul. He did humbly confront Saul with his sin, hoping Saul would change his heart, but it is entirely wrong for people to use the idea of touch not the Lord's anointed to insulate a leader from all evaluation or accountability. This is why I say, like, in my previous videos, the modern structure of church with the pastors and yada yada, all this stuff, I just feel like it's weird because you're sitting there getting preached at instead of... Oh, there's a knock. Okay, the food has arrived and I'm already upset that this box is so small. But let's see what's inside. Do I get onion rings or do these schmucks disappoint us? Let me not call them schmucks just yet. Got some stuff. I mean, it's not nothing. It's like sweet potato fries and it's a big burger. But I was hoping for for um for onion rings. These greedy schmucks. So greedy. You know what the issue is with the other restaurant that gives you the onion rings? They don't season their chips. They give you like chips. We call fries chips this side. They give you the fries and give you the onion rings. They don't season them. It's just seasoning yourself. What the fuck? Let me wrap this up so I can eat my food while it's still hot. So I was just saying, like, I prefer small groups where we can sit together and discuss the Bible. Like this. Like, imagine we were doing this, but we're in person. So then you can ask me questions. And I can be like, da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da. And then you can also give your own perspective on what you've read. And then we can learn and grow together. And we can, there can be leadership. We can appoint a leader of the group who can keep us in check and make sure that we don't go off the rails and start using the Bible to justify weird ideas and whatnot. But generally, there's so much danger when you appoint this one church leader and he's the ultimate authority, and so weird. And with Catholics, that's the thing. Like, they say the Pope is infallible, right? The Pope is the leader of the Catholic Church. So you have this current Pope who's endorsing all this transgender stuff. He's in with the in crowd, like, hey man, genders, whatever. It's like, this is not a Christian perspective. Where are you getting this from, bro? It's in all the LGBT stuff as well. Like, I'm like, bro, like, come on, my G. No. So yeah, David, the corner of the robe, him cutting up, still in the notes. It's proof that David didn't want to kill him because he's graceful. And it says, through this cut robe, God sent a message to Saul. The robe was a picture of Saul's royal authority, and through this, God said, I'm cutting away your royal authority. In previous chapters, the prophet Samuel rebuked Saul for his hard-hearted disobedience to God. In his distress, Saul tried to keep Samuel from leaving and grabbed his robe, and a portion of the prophet's robe tore away. When Saul was left holding the torn piece of Samuel's robe, Samuel said to him, "The Lord has torn the kingdom of Israel from you today and has given it to a neighbor of yours who is better than you." Now, so that's the end of the quote. Now, when David confronts Saul with the torn robe, Saul must have been reminded of this incident, and God's message to him was loud and clear. Interesting. So this is not the first time he's dealt with, because he tore Samuel's robe, and Samuel told him, just like you tore my robe, the kingdom is being torn from you. Now David tore Saul's robe. So in his mind, he's putting two and two together. He's like, oh, I've been persecuting David. I've been doing evil things to David. And God already said he's torn my kingdom away from me. I feel like he's reminding me through this incident where David could have killed me but didn't, and just cut off a piece of my robe. I think God's telling me that my time is up. So with regards to David saying, "Let the Lord judge between you and me," David didn't need to do anything more to defend himself before Saul. He referred the matter to the Lord. David would let God plead his case and be his judge. David didn't just say, "My hand shall not be against you." He proved it by not killing Saul when he had the opportunity. The Living Bible translation says, "Perhaps he will kill you for what you are trying to do to me, but I will never harm you." In fact, David protected Saul by restraining his men. It was inevitable that Saul would be judged and that he would lose the throne, but it was absolutely God's business to accomplish that, and it was the business of no one else. Jesus established the same principle in Matthew chapter 18, verse 7, when he said, "Offenses must come, but woe to that man by whom the offense comes." God's judgment is God's business. We put ourselves in a bad place when we make ourselves instruments of God's judgment. Yeah. So with regards to David saying wickedness proceeds from the wicked, David used this proverb to make a point, saying, Saul, if I was really as wicked as your advisors say I am, if I was really out to kill you, I would have done that wicked act in the cave. Because no wickedness proceeded from me when I had the opportunity, it shows my heart is not wicked towards you. So David told Saul, I'm still trusting God that he will deliver me out of your hand. Instead of finding a way out of his trial in the flesh, David did the harder thing. He trusted God to deliver him instead of trusting in himself. So yeah, in your own life, obviously you have to be practical and use discernment. You can't leave everything to chance and whatnot, but I think generally speaking, like be prayerful and learn to leave certain things in God's hands. So if someone does something wrong to you, don't take it upon yourself to get them back and take vengeance or something like that. Leave it, pray and leave it in God's hand and trust that that person will get what's coming to them, and so on and so forth. It's not good to be vengeful. It's sinful and it's wrong and it leads to just destruction. Okay, let's continue with the chapter. So it was, when David had finished speaking these words to Saul, that Saul said, Is this your voice, my son David? And Saul lifted up his voice and wept. Then he said to David, You are more righteous than I, for you have rewarded me with good, whereas I have rewarded you with evil. And you have shown this day how you have dealt with me, for when the Lord delivered me into your hand, you did not kill me. For if a man finds his enemy, will he let him get away safely? Therefore may the Lord reward you with good for what you have done to me this day. With regards to him saying, Is this your voice, my son David? Saul responded so emotionally because Saul lived on the delusion that David was out to get him, and David's refusal to kill Saul when he had the chance proved beyond doubt that this was false. David's obedience to God and his love to Saul made all the difference in softening Saul's heart. It says this was a dramatic change of heart in Saul. Every change David could have hoped for in Saul had happened, and Saul really seemed sincere about it. It says in quotes, Saul lifted up his voice and wept. David heaped coals of kindness upon Saul's head, and it melted Saul's heart. So we continue with the chapter. And now I know indeed that you shall surely be king, that the kingdom of Israel shall be established in your hand. Therefore swear now to me by the Lord that you will not cut off my descendants after me, and that you will not destroy my name from my father's house. So David swore to Saul. David's nice. And Saul went home, but David and his men went up to the stronghold. With him saying, I know indeed that you shall surely be king, it says Saul knew it all along, but now he really knows it. With regards to him saying, don't cut off my descendants, Saul simply wanted the same kind of promise from David that he made to Jonathan in previous chapters. In that day when one royal house replaced another, it was common for the new royal house to kill all the potential rulers from the old royal house. Savage. Saul knew that one day David and his descendants would rule over Israel, and he wants David to promise that David and his descendants will not kill or mistreat the descendants of Saul. Okay. And Saul, with regards to saying Saul went home and David went, and these men went up to the stronghold, it says David didn't go back home with Saul to be restored to his home in his place at the palace, because David knew that as much as Saul meant it at the moment, the struggle would be to remain in the place of victory. Many times a person repents and claims to recognize their sinful ways just like Saul did, but the validity of repentance and a changed heart isn't demonstrated by the emotion or sincerity of a It is demonstrated by the ongoing direction of one's life, and David had every right to say, I'm going to stay in the stronghold until I see the direction of Saul's life. So yeah, basically David was like, oh, I'll wait, bro. I'll wait until I see that you're not crazy. Which makes sense. So yeah, whatever you got out of that whole reading, that's on you. I gotta eat. Smell my food and it smells good. Dear God, I thank you for this individual watching this right now. Thank you for blessing them, making them whole, making them unique. Thank you that you're guiding them on a good path. Bless them with a heart of peace, so that no matter who does what to them, they have peace in their hearts. They have rest in their heart, that you provide calm, oh God, that your presence of calm is felt over them, over their life. Oh God, help them have a humble heart, so that they can come to you with all of their grievance they may have, and they can leave it in your hands, and they can be good to people, oh God. just bless them with that perspective, bless them with peace, and help them, and show grace and mercy in moments where we might stumble. But yeah, enable us to just be as good as we possibly can, Lord. And good health, long life, and happiness over this person, over their friends, over their family. I pray for good people in their life who guide them and are kind to them, and bring excitement into their life and help them be the best version of themselves, Lord. Yeah, thank you for this, Lord. In my name I pray, in Jesus' name I pray. Amen, amen, amen. It's time for food.